Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crossing Borders. I'm Mike Ginn. That's Extremo Alex Soto, mean mugging for the camera. We don't have much to talk about as far as events because they're a few weeks away, so we'll mention a couple things coming. But on today's show, we're going to talk about two Mexican Americans, Alex.
Tony Ferguson
and Nate Diaz. They threw down at UFC 279, so we'll break down that fight. We'll talk about what's going on with both of those guys, and that will be today's show. But before we get to that, of course, check out FightersFirst.shop. Everything's back and functional. Everything's great with one door closing, one door open, so more opportunity. So go ahead and check out Alex's collection on that, Extremo collection. All the links, of course, are in the description below. FightersFirst.shop. Let our apparel be a part of your story. Alex, how you feeling, buddy?
Hey, I'm feeling good, man. I'm looking up some of the interesting stuff, about what happened and with Nate Diaz and the conspiracy theory.
Oh, there's so many.
All that, dude. It's 100%. I agree with who's the guy that just said and just bashed Dana White, and it's been all over the.
Who hasn't? Who hasn't?
God damn it.
Oh, Brendan Schaub.
Yeah, Brendan Schaub. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I can't believe a word that comes out of Brendan's mouth, though.
Oh, dude, I'm agree with 100% with everything he said.
I'm not saying he's wrong, but I just can't. That dude lost me a long time ago.
What did he do?
What hasn't he done? He's talked so much dumb theory shit over the years that you can tell this dude has had so many concussions. There's nothing he says that makes any damn sense. And then, actually, you know what he lost me? He lost me when he had that feud with Ariel. And I'm not an Ariel Helwani.
Oh,
I'm not an Ariel fan at all. But Ariel went hellfire and brimstone on his ass and actually won me over for a second because.
How are you not friend? How are you not a fan of Ariel Helwani?
I think he whines too much. I think he always cries like "woe is me," plays the victim card. I'm not saying he's always wrong, but just the way he kind of does it just kind of rubs me like it just doesn't make me want to watch. That makes sense.
Okay.
Right. I mean, he's in the same business I am, right? Like he's on TV, entertainment. Like you can choose to watch that or change the channel. Usually,
yeah.
If it's something really cool, I'll pay attention. He drops.
But you're not a fan. I mean, that guy's been around. He's like a pioneer, man. He was day one. That guy was there.
Yeah, but then he started just whining every time he got kicked out of a room. I was on his side when he got banned by Dana. I was like, why are you going to ban a journalist?
Yeah.
But then he goes on every network whining about it. And then, every time something bad happens to him, he whines about it. And I'm just like, all right, Okay. And then, but when Schaub went and threw the whole fighter versus journalist thing, I was like, all right, cool. I'm on Ariel's side on this one because each side needs each side. Like if you don't fight, we don't have nothing to cover. But if we don't talk about it, nobody cares that you fight. It goes both ways. It's just like the news and politics. If something happens with Biden or Trump and nobody talks about it, does anybody care? Because nobody knows. So it goes both ways. But that is that. We'll talk about that in a second. We'll go ahead and get into Nate Diaz and Tony Ferguson. I do want to drop a couple news things. We're not going to be talking about LUX Fight League this week. I know, shocker, but they do have a couple announcements I would like to share. Alex kind of dropped the bomb last episode, letting people know Alessandro Costa is coming back to defend his flyweight title. We still don't know what's up with Kiki Gonzalez and Jorge Calvo. Hopefully they'll get a number one contendership fight down soon. But his opponent is going to be Carlos Carajou Gomez. Alex told me he looked him up, knows he's a jiu-jitsu guy, so that'll be an interesting matchup in October at Puebla, the next trip that Alex is off to. And then they announced this ladies' night on LUX Fight League 28. You're going to have Victoria Alba defending against Ellie Rodriguez. I'd wondered why Ellie was booted off that last card. They never really gave much information. Well, now she's going to be fighting for the flyweight title. And LUX had announced not too long ago that Soraya Roscoe is going to go off and do a reality competition show. Exactalon. I really don't know any much about the show, but she's going to do that. So they're having an interim strawweight title fight as well. Shaka Roma, who's been tearing it up lately, going against Andrea Vasquez. So it's going to be ladies' night in Monterrey on November 18th. So that's the next couple events coming up for LUX. But Alex, we're talking about Nate Diaz and Tony Ferguson, two Mexican Americans. Too deep in heritage. When I asked you to list some of the best fighters, Mexican fighters, you named both of them, even though they weren't born in Mexico because of their heritage. So I thought, what better time to bring it up on a show where we're kind of between events and they steal all the spotlight, right?
Well, first of all, I'd like to point out first that the border never crossed Nate or Tony. Okay. The border crossed them. They didn't cross the border. The border crossed them.
I'll give you this one. Or Oscar De La Hoya, right?
Or Oscar De La Hoya. Yeah. All right. They just because the border moved away, doesn't make them not Mexican. All right.
Pretty sure their family crossed that border.
Well, that's neither here nor there.
Legally or otherwise, that's not my business. But somehow their family got from Mexico to California.
California was Mexico, is my point. The border moved. Texas. The border crossed them.
So was half the Southwest at one point. So yes, you're right.
Yes.
Hell, half of Denver's where I used to live in Denver. Half of that place was Mexico too. So there you go.
There you go.
But we are getting sidetracked as usual. But so going into the event, it was supposed to be Nate Diaz versus Khamzat Chimaev. Supposed to be a welterweight fight, and
setup. It was a setup.
Everything went crazy. Khamzat got told to stop cutting weight, so he comes in 8.5 pounds over. Kevin and Holland and Daniel Rodriguez were already on path for a 180-pound fight because Rodriguez wasn't going to be able to make down weight after being off for so long, which is blowing my mind because he had a hand injury. He didn't have a knee injury or any other things that affect his cardio. He had a hand injury that kept him on the show, and you can't make your weight. Okay. And then poor Leach got caught in the middle of all of that. He was supposed to fight Tony Ferguson. Not only did he break up the fight in the back between Khamzat and Kevin Holland and Nate Diaz's camp, he was one of the fighters in there breaking it up. Then he's the one who actually weighed in properly at 170 pounds, who then had to fight a 180-pound fighter a day later. So, and then got robbed. Well, that's a whole other discussion. Then he got robbed.
Oh, he got robbed. Yeah. All I'm thinking is this was all a setup, Mike. That's all I can think of.
I think a lot of people think that, but
it was pre-planned, dude. It was clear as day, dude. I thought that, oh wow, man, they're really gonna throw Nate like that and give him Khamzat. I think Khamzat would have murdered Nate Diaz. I think it would have been like, I think everybody knows this. I think anybody.
What happened to Kevin Holland would have happened to Nate.
Yeah, it would have happened to Nate, and it would have been really bad, and it would have been just a terrible thing. And I think that camp was like, yeah, we can play it like we're gonna do it this way, and then we'll just create chaos. But all along, I think they had it all planned that Tony Ferguson was going to be showing up to fight.
I mean, I wish they just announced that fight to begin with, because that would have got me a lot more interested going into this fight.
Yeah, like, two OGs going against each other.
Yeah, I didn't think this fight was worth pay-per-view. I didn't think it was worth $74.95 paying for Khamzat to destroy Diaz in 5 seconds, and the rest of the card was kind of Like, I think this card coming up this week in the UFC is stacked. Like, this should be the pay-per-view card. But you're going to sit there and do this card with just Nate Diaz basically selling the card on his way out, like his last fight. I wasn't buying it. But so if they were conspiracy theory, they should have said that a long time ago and switched those fights, because that would have sold a lot more pay-per-views.
Well, what, you think that it was going to be worth more? I think it played a good role on the UFC to do it, because the UFC could say, okay, I got the power of Nate Diaz, right? And then we want to promote this kid that's up and coming. Well, he's already a big star, but now he's going to put him at the next level. Nate Diaz.
He's already the number 3 in the division. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's like already a name brand. Nate Diaz, very popular amongst just the average.
Diaz, Army, all the casuals. Brand. Yeah, all the casuals.
Yeah, the casuals. And so when you bring Nate Diaz in and you bring this monster, Khamzat, it makes it a very interesting matchup for those people. So I think it reaches a different audience with that. And I think that's why they were promoting that fight in the first place. The fact that he came overweight, and if you look at the weigh-in video where Khamzat is stepping on the scale,
he's like, it's not that bad.
He doesn't look bad. He doesn't look like emaciated, like he tried really hard. He was smiling. He was laughing.
He knew.
He couldn't. I mean, fighters are not actors, man. They're as real.
They told him the night before to stop cutting, so there was nothing that he was not going to come in on weight. They told him the doctor told him the night before, don't cut no more weight.
I mean, every doctor's going to tell you that, though. Every doctor's going to tell you never to cut weight. They're just going to say no. The second you complain to a doctor, the doctor's going to tell you to stop. What cutting weight is not a healthy thing. It's not
no, it's horrible.
It's you're literally killing yourself to the point where you're just alive enough to make weight for an hour, and then you're back to normal and you're recovering. You feel great.
Yeah, I mean, you sit there and risk so much. Every time I think about weight cutting, I think of Renan Barão and the fact that he was hospitalized not once but twice while he was bantamweight champion, trying to make that weight.
Yeah.
And back in the day, even if you were hospitalized and you could get IV back up and be ready to go fight night, then you can fight. Nowadays, you can't IV back up. That's a big no-no. And so the doctors are like, if you're too drawn out the night before, they're going to tell you to stop because they don't want you to do a Renan Barão. I mean, basically. And like, could have Khamzat made the last 8.5 pounds by morning? Fighters do it all the time, probably. Would he have rehydrated up and been ready to go by fight night? Probably. But is it worth the risk? I don't know. Like, that's a conspiracy theory / real thing. We don't know.
I mean, come on. How many times have we seen fighters really struggle to make the scale, though? I mean, they look
all the time,
awful.
Especially in UFC.
They look gaunt. You know, their eyes are sunk into the
That's
skull.
one of the reasons one does what they do, because one has the hydration tests. Before you ever weigh in, they do a hydration test. You don't pass the hydration test, you can't even weigh in. Forget whether you make weight. You can't even weigh in.
That's what I was. So you don't see that with Khamzat, and that's what I'm saying. Is like you could see that the guy was just smiling, like, oh, okay, whatever. This is why I think it was premeditated, because he was just the way that Khamzat was looking, man. Like I've made it 135 pounds, like just barely, dude, and I'm fucking dying. My eyes are sunk into my skull. You know, like I'm all gaunt, and it's a terrible thing, and you can't even fake it. But I'm just saying, dude, that guy looked lively as a motherfucker that day.
Oh yeah, like I look at Conor. You mentioned Conor McGregor. Look at every time Conor tried to make 145 pounds, he looked like Skeletor on that scale. Yeah. And then he's like, his face, just like you said, all drawn out, like. And then the next day, all of a sudden, he's back. Like, oh yeah, he looked like Conor, but
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's all a game, but it's a horrible game, because like people like Kevin Holland, he had no problem going for 185 pounds before, because he was basically, that's his walking weight. He was a dude that didn't cut weight. He basically cut like 2-3 pounds, made weight, and went and fought. 170, he's like, all right, well, I have to cut weight, but it's kind of like part of the game. So now I feel like I'm actually a fighter now. And then
you remind me of the Anthony Rumble Johnson, dude. I actually fought in a card with him, and he was just massive human being, dude. A massive freaking 210 dude, or 230, and he would cut down to 170. That's his
back weight every time.
And he looked like, I remember sitting next to him on the bus ride to the stadium, and he was just shriveled, man, just to make the weight. This is back when you would have to actually weigh in front of the whole crowd, when you were just shriveled up. And he looked awful, man. He looked awful at 170, like just pale white, and just the skin. I remember his skin would flap and like a paper bag with all the air sucked out of it, fold in on itself. Yeah, it was a bad thing, man.
Yeah, weight cutting is definitely something that needs to be fixed in the sport. I don't know if it ever will be, because as a fighter, you're going to take every advantage you can get.
Oh yeah,
every edge. Boxers have been doing it forever. MMA fighters doing it forever. If they tell you got to be within a certain range, and you're going to go for the range below that, so you can blow back up and having a strength advantage.
And IVs, the IVs might be illegal, but all the fighters are doing it. They're all getting their IVs in. Yeah, I mean you can put an IV in through your ankle, through the veins on your ankle, on your neck, on wherever, and you can easily skate by, and nobody would know that you would get hydrated. So I'm sure all the fighters are, once they're weighing
to expose the industry, Alex.
Hey, dude, I'm giving you the inside, guys. This shit's happening for sure, 100%.
Look, I've said it 1,000 times. If a fighter can find a way to cheat the system, they're going to. And it's not anything personal. It's just kind of the way the game works. And Nate Diaz is a 155-pound violent fighter going up to 170 the last few fights of his career. He's not cutting weight. He stopped training weeks ago. He sat there and said, I don't give a shit. I don't care about this fight. Whether he knew the Ferguson fight was coming or not, he did not care about the Khamzat fight. He said he stopped training. He was midway through training. He's like, for what?
Yeah.
For what? Yeah. I'm just going to go and get my last fight over with. And then he got kind of remotivated when they found out Tony Ferguson was the guy.
Yeah.
Because now he's fighting somebody he wants to fight and actually have respect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was going to get murdered. I think, you know, you got the fighter flight kind of thing, you know, and I just didn't see it any other way, man. I thought Khamzat was going to murder him. And I have a feeling he might have known that as well. So maybe that could attribute to his fuck this. This is my last fight. I don't give a fuck, and give himself an out. So when he does lose, it's like, well, I wasn't training. You know what I mean? So whatever. You know, those are the psychics of fighting. But like I said, I think perhaps I don't know when the planning for the event to switch the contenders or the opponents, whenever that had happened, but I thought for sure. To me, I was like, "Oh man, that's actually a genius move to get Tony Ferguson involved into this fight."
Well, that genius move cost Dana a couple million more dollars to get Tony to take that fight. But you know, whatever.
Maybe look, it did. Hey, where is it written? That's not published information. Yeah, he's just saying. And no, it's not.
Tony's salary for the fight is published.
Tony's salary for how much was it?
I think he got up to like 450,000 or something like that bonus, or like his base pay got bumped up to that. But then he's getting part of the pay-per-view buys now, so he's gonna end up making like $1.5 million.
Oh yeah, what percentage? What percentages did they post? They're not gonna post how much he got off.
They're not gonna post a percentage, but he's getting points when he didn't get points before.
Well, usually every fighter on the main card gets points on.
No, not always. It's in your contract. Remember, famously, Demetrius Johnson chose the money up front versus the points. He never got a point off his thing, so he never cared if he was on Fox or pay-per-view because he got the same money no matter what. He took it up front.
Yeah.
Some fighters, especially older fighters like Tony, take that money up front because they don't trust the promoters. So you don't know if he was getting points, but he got a raise.
I'm sure it was good, worth it, but it wasn't hundreds of millions of dollars like you're kind of
not hundreds, but a couple $1 million. I said a couple, but not maybe hundreds.
A couple. I would say
I didn't say Conor McGregor money.
No. I would say probably maybe close to 1.5 mil, maybe.
Yeah, I said 2. You're giving me crap over $500,000.
Yeah, that's a lot of money, dude.
Oh my God, I can't with you, Alex. But all right, so we got the conspiracy part out of the way. Maybe it was planned, maybe it wasn't. But let's talk about this fight because it was either kind of like the week before with Rocco and Costa. It was either one of the worst fights you ever seen or one of the greatest fights you ever seen because at half the time. Nate Diaz had his hand on the cage. He's like, I don't even want to be in here. What y'all doing? And then the moment Tony put his guard down, Nate's like, boop, 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 boop. And he comes rushing in. And like, it was strategically a great fight by Nate because he got Tony in Ferguson's head. He got Ferguson off his game. Nate was doing a great job of checking Ferguson's kicks, which caused Ferguson's foot to be bloodied up. You saw Ferguson basically, and Ferguson was up on 2 out of the 3 scorecards going into the 4th round. If he doesn't do that shot to try to take him down, there's a good chance Tony Ferguson wins this fight by decision. What did you think of the actual fight?
Well, it's typical Nate Diaz fashion is what I thought. Like, that dude has never wanted to win a fight by points. Nate Diaz just fights like a gangster, man. He wants to either knock you out or submit you. He doesn't give a fuck about, oh, I got to run the clock. Oh, I got to control him up against the cage and get some control time. He's not thinking strategically ever like that. I don't think he ever has. And so it was in typical Nate Diaz fashion to fight like a street brawler, man, which is why everybody loves him because he fights for that shit. And that's why, you know, he's one of the guys that's been around forever is because of that kind of style of fighting. If you look at, you know, Tony Ferguson, I think he wasn't, you know, this is why I say like, okay, well, he did not look good at 170 pounds, in my opinion. I think it was a little bit too, he thrives on suffering, you know, he thrives on being forced, right? Or trying to make himself better and getting mentally fit. I think that lack I think it showed. And I saw on Instagram a really interesting video of his coach.
Some of that's also father time, but go ahead.
Yeah, all that too. That takes an effect, you know. But one of the videos that I thought was really interesting is that we're talking shit about his corner, where it's like, oh, just stop giving him your back, like giving him the opposite. He kept throwing spinning back elbows, And they're like, stop giving your back. Don't turn your back to Nate. Don't turn your back to Nate. And then they're like, okay, go for a takedown now. Go for the takedown. And he goes for the takedown and he gets submitted.
Yeah.
And anyway.
While Nate's posing. Yeah. That's all Nate waited. He's like, oh, you went in my wheelhouse? Like, people forget all the shit about Stockton slaps and Nate's boxing. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
The Diaz brothers, Jake Shields, one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world. They're black belts in jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. No, and well, I mean, Tony Ferguson is a beast on the ground though. So I didn't think it was going to be that easy to catch him though, man. I think that length that Nate Diaz brings, you know, his physical body is what makes him extra good at jiu-jitsu, man. It's just, you know, yes, he's started he's stuck to the jiu-jitsu game for a long time, but also he's just got a natural build for it that he's able to lock in those triangles so easily with those long limbs and that hand in guillotine. It's just like, man, it was really fast. And to do that on Tony Ferguson, that's impressive.
Yeah, Brandon pointed out yesterday or 2 days ago when we did Art of MMA that it's rare you see two fighters with both 76-inch reaches. Like, they both have that long reach, like you just said. And for Ferguson's point, he just switched over to Jackson's. Like, you remember forever that Tony Ferguson was self-trained. He didn't want to listen to nobody. He did all his unorthodox training things. And for this camp, finally, he switched over. He went to Greg Jackson down in Albuquerque. So we don't know how much that kind of affected strategy-wise versus him kind of just going whatever he feels. Mm-hmm. You were talking about the corner. But I will say this, that his conditioning, I think, might have been a little better than people kind of thought training at altitude down in Albuquerque. It just might have had more of a dad bod because he was more comfortable at 170 pounds. I think his problem really was he fell for Nate's mind games. Like, every time Nate would go stand by the cage or look like he's about to quit this fight, man, I don't want to do this no more. And to the point where even the ref was like, let's go. And Nate would come in and throw a jab. Like, anytime you thought Nate was legitimately about to quit this fight and the ref was about to stop it, Nate would be like, no, hold on. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, now I'm going to walk away. And it got to the point where Tony didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
We've seen before, Tony Ferguson has his jiu-jitsu, right? Like we said, self-trained, stuff like that. But how did his jiu-jitsu match up against a world-class jiu-jitsu in Charles Oliveira? Oliveira wrapped him in pretzels. Oliveira was all over him because there's levels to this game. You can train as much jiu-jitsu as you want on your own, but if you're not training with some of the best in the world, you know, there's levels to this. And Nate trains with Jake Shields. Like, come on. Like, we talked about Jake Shields forever about being a world-class jiu-jitsu guy. Gilbert Melendez, all those guys up there. Like, they've, for the last 25, 30 years, have been best friends training together. Nate Diaz. Like, those guys know what they're doing. And we always talk about the scrappiness of the Diaz brothers. But they, you know, triathlon-type athletes, listening to, like, all their crap they talk, you forget these guys can go. And as they're getting older, like, Nick looked horrible his last fight because guess what? He hadn't fought in like 10 years, and he's just getting a paycheck. Right. Nate just getting a paycheck. Honestly, I really want to see what happens with Nate next because he's already got an offer from Bare Knuckle to fight Mike Perry, which I think would be that would be hilarious. He obviously wants to fight Jake Paul and get that payday. But he surprised me, Alex, when he said in his comments after the fight, he said he has a love-hate relationship with the UFC, but it's still his home. And after he goes and makes that money and shows people how to do it outside of the UFC, he wants to come back. Now, he said come back and win a championship. We know that's never happening, Nate. Stop it. Like, you're not going to war. Like, Leon already kicked your ass for 5 rounds. You had one moment in the 5th round. But he was dominating you for 5 rounds. Usman would destroy you. Just stop it. You're not coming back and winning the title at 155, 170. You could be 205. You're not winning the title in the UFC anytime soon. But he could go out and sell a lot of pay-per-views with Jake Paul, with Mike Perry, any of those things. What do you think's next for Nate Diaz? What's the best fit?
Man, I think he's gonna relax for the next couple of years, man, because that's how they roll. They fight, get a bunch of money.
He wants to get paid. He said he's been relaxing. He wants to get paid. His window's closing. He knows Father Time's catching up.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. It's a good point. Does he want to do it? You know, it's hard. It's hard once you got, you know, $10 million in the bank account, you know, the next day, and you're like, do I need to fight next week? Do I need to go into bare knuckle fighting and smash my arms, get sliced open?
I mean, he doesn't care about bleeding. You know that.
No, I'm not saying bleeding. I'm saying it's sliced up.
He does not care about getting beat up and bleeding. He's done that every fight of his career. This was probably the cleanest that he ever looked after a fight.
Honestly, I wouldn't want to see him fight. Honestly, I wouldn't want to see him fight again. I think this is a great way to end his career.
I mean, he went out like a boss.
He went out like a boss. He took out one of the meanest, craziest, 155ers in the UFC history. You know, one of the guys that was always at the top, maybe top 2, for the longest time. Arguably, I thought that Khabib fight that was cursed. I really wish that would have happened. Damn, it's like that sucks. But I think Nate Diaz, his career has been fantastic, and he says it and he knows it, right? Like he's been like, yeah, this is I've been in the game the longest, and back to that fight that he said he had against the current champ, where he says, I fought him, and in the real game, I won that fight because he almost finished him, So I think it's so funny the way he looks at that fight, Yes, he had that one moment. Well, that fucking one moment almost finished him off.
He might have been able to finish him. He didn't stop and point at him like, "Ha ha, I got you. Aha, I got you."
Because that's the way.
That's what he does.
He sees that and he's like, "That's how you win the fight, man." Right.
But instead, like his mind logic should have been, "Oh, he's hurt. Let me go attack and try to finish this fight. It's my only Hail Mary shot in the 5th round." Instead, Nate Diaz is so messed up in the brain. He's like, I got you. Yes. I'm not winning this fight, but I got you. Yep. And like no logic there. Like everybody in the world's like, follow up, Nate.
Yeah.
He just sitting there pointing at him.
Yeah.
And then by that point, Edwards is back to normal, and we're like, oh, okay, you're gonna still lose this fight. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's that's the game, That's how he sees the game. That's how he sees, his fights. And he finishes guys off. I mean, when's the last time he's got finished? Did he get submitted or choked out or knocked out? Maybe
the last time.
Maybe his early career.
I mean, well, Nate Diaz has gotten finished. I mean, let's be real. Masvidal finished him in that BMF fight. He finished him.
Well, okay. Yeah, he got finished, but not street rules, man. I'm talking street finish. A doctor stopped that fight.
I mean, a doctor stopped that fight because he was getting his ass whooped.
He was still standing. He was still willing to throw and bang, dude. So
and then ironically, even though he tapped Conor out, that went to a decision. So you're right. He didn't get stopped there.
Okay, when did he get?
You have to go back to Josh Thompson with the head kick.
What year was that?
2013.
And was he knocked out?
Yeah, TKO, head kick.
He was TKO'd. He wasn't knocked out.
Well, yeah, because the ref was slow and Josh threw a couple more punches on the ground. But yeah, he was out.
He wasn't out cold.
Yes, he was. When Josh
sleeping.
Go on YouTube and look at that Josh Thompson Nate Diaz fight. Josh Thompson knocked Nate Diaz out.
Sleep.
Sleep.
Okay. All right. I don't remember that.
A beautiful head kick in the 2nd round and put him out.
I do remember him collapsing and and getting stopped, but I don't remember him sleeping.
Alex, you were in the middle of your career at that point, probably still concussed, but but that was a beautiful moment in Josh Thompson's career. I remember that like yesterday. He knocked out. And then yeah, you're right. He doesn't get finished. He toughs everything out. Half his losses are split decision. You gotta go all the way back to WEC before his UFC run. His last WEC fight where he got tapped out to an armbar.
There we go. So he did. That's the gangster rules right there. So that's the last time he got finished.
2006. You're not going to count the Masvidal fight. We're not going to count the Josh Thompson fight. That's the last time. Okay.
No, we're talking gangster rules here. That's why.
We're not talking gangster rules. We're talking Alex Soto.
We're talking
rules.
street rules here, Mike.
Man, Alex just took Nate Diaz down to the mean streets of Tijuana, and
I know what he's saying, man. I'm looking at the Josh Thompson fight, and he's fine, dude. He's just a little dizzy.
I'm sure he bounced back quick, but
he's still awake.
He's not awake. He's on the ground.
He didn't get knocked out. Look at that. Look at that. Look it. He's not sleeping. He's still defending. Referee stopped it.
He turned to his back and put his hand behind his back. He was not defending.
Okay, but he's in the streets, dude. He's still alive, man.
And quite honestly, Josh probably woke him back up when he hit the canvas and punched him.
He didn't go to sleep, dude. So
give Josh Thompson his credit. What's your problem with the punk Josh Thompson?
I'm just saying, in the street rules, the way Nate Diaz sees these fights, he didn't lose that fight.
He didn't lose that fight. All right. Well, I'll tell you this much. My final thought on it is that Nate Diaz is going to be Jake Paul's biggest fan in October when he fights Anderson Silva, because if Anderson Silva ends the Jake Paul train, there's no money train for Nate Diaz. Okay. So I think Nate is going to be cheering for Jake Paul that night.
All right.
Because if Jake can get through Anderson Silva, I think Nate Diaz is next for that big payday.
That'd be sick. That'd be sick.
I don't believe Tommy Fury or anybody else is getting that payday. I think it's set up for Nate Diaz. They've been trying to angle it. Nate's been showing up at his fights the last couple times. They've been trying to get this fight. Nate and Dana would never let it happen. Well, he's a free agent now. He can do what he wants. So, and he probably has the boxing to. We talk about levels to this, and people can bash Jake Paul all they want. He's been training professional boxing now for like 4 years. He's been doing, professional level boxing, whereas Nate Diaz has been doing MMA level boxing, which you can train with some of the best coaches in the world. Guess what? You're also defending for takedowns. You're also looking for other things in your psyche. You're not focused on just punches. You're like, what's coming here? What's going there?
It's all about volume in boxing. It's a whole different game, a whole different set of rules. But Nate Diaz is he's going to be doing the street fighting and boxing. I don't know if that was going to work out well for him.
Look, Nate Diaz can get beat by Jake Paul, but if he lands one Stockton slap, even with the big gloves, it's like, you know what? He's going to win the fight, and the fans like right there. The fans are like, he won the fight. He hit him with a Stockton slap.
Dude,
with a big old glove, and you see a big old print on his hand.
And he's a gangster, dude. That's why. Those are street rules, man. So he never lost that.
Diaz. You know what? Those are Diaz rules. That you're right. You're 100% right. The cult of Diaz, that they just want to see a gangster moment, live or die. For Tony Ferguson's sake, I don't think he loses anything by losing this fight. He wasn't supposed to take it on the books, whether you believe the conspiracies or not. He was never supposed to be there, so he can't lose any steam. He'll probably run it back with Leach or whatever else was meant to be. Leach lost his fight too, so that still makes sense. You're not going to give Tony Ferguson a contender at 170 pounds. He's lost multiple fights in a row. I don't know. Should Tony even keep fighting at this point?
I don't know. I'm a huge fan of Tony Ferguson. I've seen him fight when he fought that Brazilian. What's his name?
Oliveira?
Help me out here. No, the other one. The one that's spinning back kick.
Brazilian?
Yeah, Brazilian guy. Nope, not De La Rouge.
Dos Anjos?
Nope.
Barboza.
Barboza. I was there for this Barboza fight. I was there like watching it. And just watching Tony Ferguson dismantle him so fast and without a care. Because you can
Your
see
wife
Barboza.
let you go to Las Vegas?
Can you believe that? Isn't that crazy?
No, I don't believe that.
Dude, it was so rad, man. That fight was so awesome because Barboza
she was with you, wasn't she?
Kicks, huh?
She was with you, wasn't she?
Oh, of course, dude. I was
yeah,
locked
100%.
in. Yeah, I could. But dude, it was a beautiful fight, and just seeing Tony Ferguson get him in a Darce choke so fast, like almost instantly, like we just knew instantly that it was gonna happen, and it did, and there was no stopping it, dude. It was rad. It was a sick fight.
So the fans got what they want. Diaz versus Ferguson. Diaz goes out like a boss, gets the win, kind of like his walk-off on the Super Bowl moment, right? Doesn't got to be a championship. He just walked out of his UFC contract with a win. The last thing Dana really would probably wanted, because now he has to say something nice about Nate versus just get out my house, just go away. Like now he's like, yeah, we would love to bring Nate back one day. Of course. Right?
Yeah.
He has to say all these things because Nate won. He like beat the system. Whether it was, we know Hamzat would have probably destroyed him. Anything can happen in a fight, but come on.
Yeah, I agree. But it was going to be a one-sided murder, man, with all due respect.
Even Hamzat was like, I would have killed that dude.
Conspiracy theory 100% here. I think that it's true, man.
Well, evidently, Alex is giving a full shout-out to Brendan Schaub's show. We will not do that, but Alex can do that. Follow Alex Soto on social media.
I'm with Brendan Schaub on this one, man.
I hope nobody clips that one. Nobody clips you saying that. That could come back to bite you one day. He throws out a lot of stuff. Okay. But that said, I thought it was a fantastic fight. I thought the card surprised me being a pretty fun card to watch. I mean, it had a lot of catchweight fights. There was a lot of weight issues that night. I think like 5 fights that card were like catchweights. 1, 2, 3, 4.
It was a sloppy card, man. Sloppy, man.
6 catchweight fights on a UFC card. But they also had some amazing knockouts. Almeida's rear naked choke was awesome. Obviously, Chris Barnett's always must-see, fun TV watching. Hamzat destroyed Kevin Holland. Daniel Rodriguez with a controversial win over Lee. Irene Aldana, you want to talk about Mexicans? Irene Aldana with that liver kick from the ground.
Oh, that was sick. That was sick. Yep.
Have you ever trained that?
Yeah. I mean, that's how you train. Like they tell you to do every time you're up there. You know.
Like I asked Brandon. Brandon said like they train up kicks. Obviously, they train kicking up, but they never actually at Tiger Showman's. They never trained to kick the liver. Irene evidently trains it all the time, and it should be trained.
I used to train with this guy. Gosh, what's his name? Kevin. Dunsmore. I used to train with Kevin Dunsmore, 125er, and he was an expert at hurting you. He was just like one of those people that if you touch, he somehow finds a way to hurt you, like injure you. You know that guy in at the gym, and so he would always do those. Like he would always like heel. He was an expert at like just getting that heel on you, man. And so he would do it on the ground when you try to get on him, and you're like, bam, he'll try to heel. Get a heel right on your liver. Yeah. Or he'll like get your back and then just start dropping liver, attacking the liver with his heel. Like that guy was just always just really difficult.
It's a brilliant move. It's like Aldana says they train that all the time, and that's the first time I've ever seen it in a fight. I don't think it's ever happened in a fight before on UFC TV anyway, and. Everybody looks out for the up kicks to the face, right? You're going diving in and trying to jump with somebody. You're watching out for them to get knocking you out from your face. You're not protecting your body. Yeah. It's the same way as Anderson Silva got that famous knockout with the knee to the chest. And we were like, did he hit him in the head? No, it was cleanly to the solar plexus, which was legal. It's the things you don't think about because they just don't happen. Yeah. But everybody knows you get hit in the liver. That's it. Shut down. And no matter how tough you are, no matter how good a shape you are, get in the liver, lights out, shut down. Everything goes away. So shout out to Irene Aldana. Like that was an amazing finish. Macy Chiasson, another one that battled weight issues going into that thing. So yeah. Alex, before we get out of here, any final thoughts on that UFC 279 card?
Final thoughts? No, I think we covered everything we needed to cover. I think the conspiracy being exposed, that's being true as a fact. I think that's what I wanted to cover. So I think we're good.
All right. Well, we got a couple weeks until October 14th with LUX Fight League. I think it's a month away. So we'll probably get back to highlighting a couple fighters that should be on that card. I say should be because the way things always are subject to change at this point. But we're going to highlight a couple fighters over the next couple episodes. Get back to that until we preview LUX Fight League 27 coming up October 12th from Puebla, the Battle of Puebla 2. Even though, once again, it's not on Cinco de Mayo.
One day. We'll get it right.
All right. For Extremo Alex Soto, I'm Mike. And make sure you leave a comment, like, and subscribe. And enjoy all the action this week. I think UFC's in action. I think it's the only show in town. But, yeah, enjoy all that. We're out. This is Crossing Borders. We'll see you soon.